Boys, what is going on? It's time to talk about the metagame that is in Duel Links. I haven't made one of these videos in a while, and it feels good to talk about Duel Links again. So let's get into it. My favorite part of Duel Links is the metagame, and that's what I love talking about. If you enjoy the Duel Links metagame as well, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know down below so I can make more videos related to that. I'm going to be trying something a little different with this Ryi Report as well. I will be giving my opinion on what a tier list will probably look like when it comes to the current metagame that we are in. Meanwhile, I will also tell you what, in my opinion, are the best ladder decks to play, because in my opinion, you really can't tier ladder decks. It's just you should probably play these decks and don't play these decks if you want to climb very, very quickly. Basically, pretend all the decks I'm about to tell you are the tier 1 of ladder. Everything else is tier 2 and below. Let's talk about the metagame. What has happened in Duel Links with the new box specifically? That is what is on everyone's mind. Did the new box have massive meta impact, as massive as we think they will? Because that box seemed really, really strong. Well, we have had 2 major tournaments since then: Battle Phase Friday, number 390, and GG Tour. Battle Phase had a total of 110 players, and GG Tour had about 240, if I'm not mistaken. We'll go over the graphic in just a wee bit. To my knowledge, these are the 2 largest tournaments that have happened. GG Tour by far is definitely the most largest tournament that's happened with the new mini box, so I feel more comfortable talking about the new mini box's impact as well as the overall metagame, and just kind of giving my opinions on the metagame and what we can kind of talk about based on that knowledge we've gained from 2 major tournaments now. So you can see here, Battle Phase Friday, the most entered deck is still that DDD deck, only by 5 though, so not like a massive amount of people. Odd Eyes in second place, that has kind of been the norm. Fluffles, lots of Galaxy Eyes, 8 Galaxy Eyes, Metal Foes as well up there, Gandora, Phantom Knight, and then a whole bunch of other decks. One thing to note though, Burning Abyss, only 1 person entered with Burning Abyss in this event, and I want to point that out specifically for 2 reasons. A, boom, this is the top 32 cut from that tournament. You can see 6 Odd Eyes, so it wasn't even DDD that was able to make it to the absolute maximum number of tops. It was only 2 DDD ended up topping. It was actually Odd Eyes that ended up topping, which Odd Eyes has been on a hot streak in the week. They have been doing very, very, very well with other smaller tournaments, so it's good to see them able to convert in a larger tournament. And the Galaxy Eyes at 4 copies as well, doing very well in this tournament. Now, the finals of this tournament actually ended up being Photon versus Burning Abyss, which, holy crap, like that's pretty good, right? Burning Abyss, only 1 player entered, and he was able to climb his ass all the way to the grand finals. I think that is absolutely insane. And of course, Photon being able to get there as well. The major changes with these decks, Photon or Galaxy Eyes, whatever you want to call them. I'll frequently say Photons because I'm used to calling them Photons. Just know if I say Photons, I mean Galaxy Eyes. If I mean Galaxy Eyes, I mean Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. They feel like a Master Duel deck. Like, low-key, they just feel like a Master Duel deck. They have a monster that comes out on turn 1 that has a bunch of effects. He has a monster negate. He has the ability to search and refresh your hand, so you're able to make follow-up plays. He feels absolutely insane. And then on top of that, the new Galaxy Eyes skill basically turns your Photon Dragon into the Master Duel Zodiac deck, where you're just able to constantly keep 1 card XC climbing through your entire extra deck, over and over and over, going from your Photon Dragon to either your Cypher Dragon or your full armor Xyz Dragon, and you just keep climbing up and up and up into all these different pops and disruptions to then lethal your opponent with. It is pretty insane when you watch Photon in play, so good job for them being able to top. We also had trains on here, that's Railway and Spellbook, so overall it looked good on the first day for the mini box, but the big question was GG Tour, and oh my goodness, 239 total players, almost 240, after all the drops and DQs and everything. 51 DDDs entered. That is a staggering number of DDD entries and amount of people who think DDD is the best deck with Galaxy Eyes number 2 at 24 entries. Burning Abyss also went back up after that day 1 victory of the tournament, going back up to 12 as well. And you would think that the results would be kind of similar to the Battle Phase Friday that we had, but they could not be further from that. Look at this. Holy crap. The top 32 here. 8 DDDs returning and absolutely dominating the top cut. By far the most top deck of that event. 4 Gandoras, 4 Odd Eyes, 2 Burning Abyss. One of the Burning Abyss was a tiebreaker Burning Abyss that didn't even show up to his game because he didn't realize he had topped. So really it was one guy that was going through the tournament scene again, and only 2 of those Galaxy Eyes. Galaxy Eyes heavily underperforming. Galaxy Eyes actually ended up bowing out before the top 8. They all lost by the time we got to the second round of elimination knockout, the top 16. So Galaxy Eyes did not look good whatsoever in the GG Tour. And if you don't know what GG Tour is, GG Tours are $500 every 2-week tournament, so bi-monthly, I suppose, tournament series for Duel Links. So they did not show up when it really, really mattered. They showed up in the tournament that was, I believe, $30 prize pool, but the $500 one, when all the best players in the scene came out, they just couldn't compete, unfortunately. And we'll talk about a couple of reasons as to why I think that has been, and I think that's a pretty good segue into, boom, what I personally believe to be the current tier list. Now, please keep in mind that we also do power rankings here, and power rankings are the absolute perfect snapshot of what the meta actually is based on results and what actually happens in the scene, okay? So if you're interested in what the meta actually is, make sure to definitely check out those power ranking videos. This is just my personal opinion and is not 100% accurate and will definitely change on a tournament-to-tournament basis, especially with how many tournaments we do here at DLE. I mean, this week alone, we did 3 Duel Links tournaments, so my opinion is going to change very rapidly as I see people change their side deck, etc., etc., etc. Also, this is specifically for best of 3. We'll talk about ladder in just a second. Tier 1, undisputed, DDD, there's just no arguing it. The thing that makes DDD so freaking good, and they are actually the ones that won this GG Tour. Sorry, I forgot to talk about that. It was DDD versus Burning Abyss again in the Grand Finals, and it went to a Game 3, and ultimately, it was DDD that was able to take it all. And it wasn't an easy game. It was the game 3 was extremely scrappy. The game 1, DDD lost. They lost due to a DDD misplay. While the other 2 games, it felt kind of like the DDD player almost lucked out, but it wasn't really luck. It's the deck's consistency, right? This deck, all 3 games looked exactly the same turn 1. The DDD player went first. He made the coach trainer, the GN trainer, the guy I call GN Stranger, was able to draw 3 cards and set 2 back row. And the duel was pretty much, concluded at that point. The only thing that kind of changed was in Game 3, where it got super spicy with Shadow Imprisoning Mirror being bounced back and added to the hand. It was an insane finals. You should definitely go check out the VOD, and we'll probably have, to be honest, the finals here on the YouTube in the next couple of days once I get it downloaded and uploaded and all that from the Twitch channel. But the one thing you could say about DDD is the absolute consistency of this deck. If you open your Kepler, if you open up your Gate, you basically have your skill ready to go, and that just makes your deck extremely consistent. We have seen this deck brick, but it is so extremely hard with so many starters, plus the skill that kind of enables you to have that, that board state ready to go. This deck is not necessarily the most explosive in terms of power, but it has the right power to consistency ratio that you kind of need to be that tier 1 deck right now. And I think it's just hands down the best deck. It's very hard to argue that it's not. Speaking of the other tier 1 deck, in my opinion, it's Burning Abyss, man. They don't have a lot of representation right now, and their conversion rate is extremely poor. If you mathematically look at this, you'll look at me and say, Ryi, you're full of shit. Ain't no way Burning Abyss that good of a deck. But hear me out. I think in the coming days, as people learn this deck, because this is not a simple deck to pilot, you do have to kind of think your plays out. This is not just activate skill and unga bunga your head into it. And as people get more comfortable with this deck, and of course, if people actually purchase this deck and actually play it, you know, even in this GG tour, people did play this deck. It wasn't really that many entries, you know, 13 compared to 51 and 24 is very low, all things considered. Okay. Burning Abyss is absolutely nuts right now. Beatrice, when she is on the board, you can quick play Sin Farfa to banish one of your opponent's monsters, especially in Xseed monsters. There's a lot of good Xyzs right now. They don't get their material, they don't get their effect. You can also send, I think his name's Alish, something like that. Basically, when he's sent to the graveyard, you just negate a monster effect just like that. It's actually kind of insane. Quick play monster effect negation, quick play banish a monster, quick play, just send Kiteroid to the graveyard. If all your other options are tied up, you could just quick play send Kiteroid to the graveyard. Now, do I think Burning Abyss has the potential to drop out of Tier 1? Yes. Do I think DDD has the potential to drop out of Tier 1? No. I think they are perma Tier 1. Burning Abyss may end up dropping out of Tier 1 because, let's be honest, they do kind of lose to the side deck, and I haven't seen enough games where enough people have been countered enough that they bring their own counters in their side deck. And I don't really think that Burning Abyss has the potential to side that many cards, if I'm being completely honest with you, because they are milling a lot. They play larger decks. You know, it's going to be hard to you know, actually get to a point where they can play those side deck cards and actually utilize them without just milling them and be completely useless, in my opinion. But as of right now, listen, man, Burning Abyss won the Battle Phase Friday and got to the finals of a massive GG Tour tournament. Both completely different players. It's not like it was the same player. No, it was just two different players with a similar deck, and that deck is what won. You know, obviously the players, they're good and they were able to pilot the deck to success, but the deck was able to get it there, and I think it's hard to argue that it's not Tier 1. Now, I think you might argue it falls out of Tier 1 after it gets countered in the side deck, and we'll revisit that maybe next week or some other time when we get more data, but as of right now, I'm gonna have to place them in Tier 1. That deck is insane. I love the fact that you don't have to play trap-heavy version of them anymore. You can play just pure Burning Abyss. It's not my personal favorite playstyle, the Burning Abyss playstyle, but I do appreciate how it's actually not a trap deck now, basically. The traps suck. You don't want to be playing traps in that deck. Let's move on to Tier 2. In my opinion, Odd Eyes and Galaxy Eyes. Let's talk about Odd Eyes first. Odd Eyes, a lot of people were saying, was contending for that Tier 1 spot with DDD. And I just personally think that this deck is just... It's discount DDD, man. You know, it's not as consistent. It's not as powerful. It doesn't explode as much. It, you know, it doesn't have as much recovery tools. It's just everything that this deck can do. I feel like DDD just does it better, and Odd Eyes just ends up feeling like discount DDD. The only thing that's kind of different, I guess, in a sense, is, you know, you've got your quick play pops, right, with your Doom Rider. You've got your, you know, you're able to make the Abyss Dweller turn 1 to lock down potentially Burning Abyss. Abyss Dweller is really good against Burning Abyss, so that might, you know, rise in stakes with Odd Eyes. Zhongke Magician, if you're playing against a light deck, which again, Burning Abyss, hey, listen, has, you know, the Beatrice and everything being light, could be very, very strong. But at the end of the day, I just think in terms of consistency, in terms of strength, in terms of recoverability, all the, like, the massive things you're looking at when you're looking at a deck, it's just a little bit worse in all categories compared to DDD. The only thing I could really say is better, I guess, in Odd Eyes is technically you have like that non-targeting banish, right? With the level 7 synchro or XC toolkit is very varied, so you can, you know, play around a lot more strategies. But I feel like when the meta is this focused, that's not super impactful, in my opinion. And also, we've seen Odd Eyes break more than DDD, so there you go. Galaxy Eyes, I talked about how Galaxy Eyes... I'm really unsure about Galaxy Eyes. Actually, this was the one that I had to think about the most, because I was about to toss him into Tier 3, But if I tossed them into tier 3, that would be breaking my own rule of just looking at one tournament and being like, oh, wow, they underperformed that tournament, so that means they suck. You know what I mean? Or, oh, wow, they did very well in this tournament, so that means they're very good. They had a very good tournament and then a very, very bad tournament. So there's somewhere in between. I don't know if they're going to fall to tier 3 in my mind as I see more tournaments, but I feel like as of right now, they're tier 2. This deck, the biggest problem with it is its inconsistency. It does brick a lot. This feels like a modern age Blue Eyes White Dragon, where if it gets going, holy crap, do you feel unstoppable. You're Exceed summoning multiple times a turn, you are negating your opponent's monster effects, you are constantly playing through Disruption. One Disruption does not shut down this deck if you have multiple ways of getting into your graveyard. Shuffle Reborn, the Galaxy Zero, Monster Reborn, or even something like Expedition with a special summon Galaxy Eyes monster. You know, it doesn't really shut down the deck off of one Disruption, kind of like how old Photons were. So it has a lot of power and strength, but ultimately, it just kind of comes down to what does your opening hand look like? If your opening hand is trash, you just lose horribly because the deck doesn't really function without all its core components going at each other. If you look at a deck list, which you can in our Discord, by the way, or I guess check the description down below, go to our deck channels and go check there, you'll see that this deck only runs like very few monsters, less than 10 monsters in the entire deck. So bricking will happen. But at the same time, when I see a Photon Dragon rank just one material Exceed summon into a whole bunch of extra deck monsters and absolutely annihilate the shit out of me, and even if I try to have an untargetable monster, they have 4,000 attack and they're able to swing over me, you know, it's very hard to argue that this deck is, like, bad, you know? So I'd like to see more out of Galaxy Eyes. They heavily underperformed when it really mattered, but I'm hoping to see just more out of them. I want to see if they can come back and clap, you know, in the future. So that's why I put them in tier 2 as of right now. But again, I would not be surprised if they end up in tier 3, just like how Burning Abyss may end up in tier 2. Odd Eyes, I think they're solid in tier 2. They're just the little brother to DDD. They're the worst DDD right now, so we can keep them there. I think that's fine. Tier 3, Gandora and PK. I'm gonna be honest with you boys. You might look at this tournament data and be like, oh, Gandora is a fine deck. There's nothing wrong with that. Gandora has not been converting at all, you know? And when I say converting, I mean going from top 32 to top 8. Duel Links, you know, it's a bit of a meme format, okay? I'm going to be real with you guys. Meme decks win Duel Links tournaments all the time. Unlike Master Duel, unlike TCG, where meme decks never win anything. They just top and then lose immediately in top 32. Duel Links decks, they can win. That's just kind of how the power level's always kind of kept low so that those meme decks can win. So when we talk about potentially what is converting in Duel Links, I always like to look at the top 8 because it really shows you a better picture of, you know, decks that performed well in Swiss. Okay, but can you perform well when it comes into like kind of the single elimination tournament as well? And Gandora does not convert to top 8. I think in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 tournaments we've held, there was like 1, maybe 2 Gandoras in the top 8. It's been pretty bad. Even though they're like the second most top deck here in GG Tour, I actually think they actually, if we take a look here, I think they actually underperformed in the Friday tournament as well. 3 Gandora, so that's not that bad. 3 when the top is 6. It's not horrible. But as something like, you know, 4 Gandora here, I think 1 was in top 8 or something like that. It wasn't pretty, is my point. And this was before the mini box, and the new mini box cards, especially Burning Abyss, have such a favorable matchup against Gandora. In fact, Beatrice kind of just FTKs Gandora players on her own. So, you know, it's hard to say Gandora is still a good pickup when it's struggling so much to convert into that top 8 category. I still think it's fine as a ladder deck, but it kind of reminds me like of Gaia. You know how Gaia was still viable on ladder, but it was just abysmal when we came to the best of 3 scene? I kind of feel like that's where we are when we talk about Gandora. And then Phantom Knights. Phantom Knight is still the Phantom Knight that you knew from a long time ago. It's just heavily nerfed now. It lost its limit 2s, its limit 3s. It's just a scuffed deck. And that's really all there is to say about Phantom Knights. They're still able to top. They're still able to consistently play well, but they don't really make it deep into tournaments anymore. And to be honest, they will also probably drop from the tier list very soon. They just randomly win because of back row. Back row is really strong in Duel Links. It always has been, always will be, and back row can steal you tournament wins. So, you know, like for right now, you see Phantom Knight did not do well in this tournament, and I believe they did a little bit better in the Friday tournament, but they actually did end up going pretty deep in that tournament. So it is what it is, man. The deck got nerfed. What do you want from me? You lose all your limits. You you lose access to like a bunch of cards that are actually broken in this game. So what are you supposed to do at the end of the day, right? So that is my tier list for competitive. Let's talk about ladder really quickly. These are the decks. If you plan on playing ladder, I highly recommend these. In your mind, these are the tier 1 decks. I've talked about DDD. I've talked about Burning Abyss, Galaxy Eyes, Odd Eyes. I actually have Galaxy Eyes on here twice. What the hell? Gandora. Gandora is amazing and best of 1. Let's talk about Metal Foe, because I know people are going to talk about Metal Foe. Ryi, you're underestimating Metal Foes. No, I am not. Metal Foe sucks absolute duty dog shit in best of 3. But in best of 1, especially in KC Cup, when you're not ready for them, when you don't know, they are pretty good, especially when you don't know that you're about to face them. They are pretty damn good, in my opinion. They're a pendulum deck, so they have a lot of sustain. They are able to play through a bunch of boards, especially with their quick play fusion. They're able to get through a lot of disruption that other decks can't get through. They're very resilient, especially with Orichalcos being able to deal with a lot of problematic monsters. Alcahest being able to yoink problematic monsters. They have a lot of good stuff going for them. It's just they lose to like every side deck card available without even having to think about them. One of the most prominent side deck cards right now to actually counter DDD is the Magical Spring, which you draw up to how many face-up spell traps your opponent has. You draw from your deck, but then you cannot destroy spell or trap cards your opponent controls. They become undestructible until the end of your opponent's next turn. However, that means your opponent also cannot pop your own cards, aka the freaking Metal Foes can't destroy their own field spell, can't destroy their own monsters in order to initiate any sort of plays onto their opponent. So it gets rough, you know, when you that completely FTKs your entire deck. You can't do anything if that happens to you, and you just end up GGing yourself at that point. So there you go. Metal Foes, I think they're fantastic in a best of 1 scenario, especially in a KC Cup scenario. But when you bring them into a best of 3 scenario, they're just not a good deck, man. And I think that is kind of shown here in the GG Tour. A little less so when you talk about the Friday tournament. We did have 4 Metal Foes top, but that was definitely more of a I guess an outlier. It's not so much, it's an exception, not the rule. I definitely think that this top makes a lot more sense where, you know, they're just not here. even though they were played, it's not like people didn't play them. They did play them at 5. Just, you know, didn't work out for anybody. Overall, do I like this mini box? I do. I think it's had significant meta impact just through Burning Abyss alone, and then Galaxy Eyes is still a big question mark, but ultimately has potential to still impress me, right? I want to see them optimize. I want to see them get better. I think there's a couple of more Galaxy Eyes cards coming out. I don't know if they're any good. I read them. They didn't seem that good, so I don't know if we'll see play with them, but we'll see if they continue to impress in any fashion. Overall, do I enjoy this meta? I do. I actually think someone asked me in chat earlier if I like this current metagame, and I think I do. I actually do enjoy this current metagame, even though it seems like DDD is just killing everyone and it's the best deck. I do feel like the overall power level of all the decks are very, very close. The difference between a DDD deck and an Odd Eyes deck is extremely close. And, you know, I think, you know, if we didn't have 51 people playing DDD and if it was closer to like 24 or 25 people playing DDD, you know, the top 32 breakdown would be significantly closer as well, and it wouldn't be so one-sided, if you will, with DDD kind of taking up such a huge portion. And even if, I mean, 8 being the largest portion of taken decks isn't even that big compared to some other crazy metas we've had in this game. So it's not even that bad. And it really does feel like any deck, like a Galaxy Eyes deck, if they don't brick, will absolutely ruin any deck in the metagame. There's no deck that's like, oh, wow, that's a meme. Why are you playing Galaxy Eyes? You know what I mean? Like, if they don't brick, they will absolutely ruin everybody. If Burning Abyss opens the God Hand and is able to go turn 1 and make, like, double Beatrice, which they absolutely can do, and guess what? Beatrice can be activated. If you have 2 of them, you can activate both of them. It's not a hard once per turn. It's a soft once per turn. If they do that shit, they basically have a monster banish and a monster negate in that one turn. Like, what deck is going to beat that? You know what I mean? So I really do like this metagame. I feel like there's a lot of viable decks. Of course, I've complained about it a lot, so I won't complain about it. The cost of this game is absolutely bonkers, so you will probably never get to play more than one of them unless you decide to pay money or grind your life away. But it is very diversified, and it looks like a very fun metagame to play at. If I still played the game like on a personal level and not just like made it for content creation, I would actually enjoy this current metagame that we are in. I actually do like it a lot. I do think it's probably going to get old pretty fast if DDD and all that kind of the older decks are still kind of top tier for too much longer. But there is a KC Cup coming up very, very soon, and of course that means ban list right afterwards, so I don't think that's going to be a problem, because by the time KC Cup is done and over with, I think we'll be done with, you know, seeing DDD and Burning Abyss, and well, maybe not Burning Abyss, but DDD and Odd Eyes, we'll be done seeing those decks, hopefully, and Gandora and PK and all those. That's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was a bit longer, but I just had a lot to say. Hope you guys enjoy this kind of video. If you don't enjoy this kind of video, you can also tell me that, and I'll stop making it. It's up to you. You guys let me know what type of content you like. That's all I got. Peace out, boys. Till the next one.